My advice to someone wanting to break into this field is very simple, right? Define your why. So, why do you want to come into cybersecurity? Now, the why is not I want to earn big money, I want to do this, I want to do that. That's all outcomes of why you're there, right? You've got some kind of personality that loves to solve problems. You've got a desire to always learn. That's what's going to excite you. So, if you say, I'm curious, I want to meet new people, I also want to learn new things, I want to challenge things, that's a good why.
Ladies and gentlemen, cyber heroes and cyber friends, welcome to another episode. As you know, I'm your host, Mr. Fingers, and today we have an extraordinary guest, a renowned cybersecurity expert and a thought leader within, and he has a very impressive background in information security, holding a master's degree in information security and multiple top tier certifications, which include your CISP, your CCPSP, CISA, and CEH. Now, you have to know that our guest brings in a wealth of knowledge and experience to the industry as the head of cybersecurity and GRC for a major oil and gas company in Africa. He's someone who excels in cybersecurity management, human risk, and resilient. He's the founding president of the ISC 2 Cape Town chapter, a published author in ICASA International Journey, and the creator of Cyber Stories, a weekly project raising public cyber awareness through storytelling. Now, you have to understand that this particular individual's leadership has earned him a recognition as one of the top 40 under 40 top cyber news magazine in Berlin, which was this year in 2024, as well as victory in cyber leadership in Institute's global competition for his cyber resilience strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, cyber heroes and cyber fans, please help me welcome Grant.
Mr. Fingers, humbled and honored to be on your show. Thank you for the invite and thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much. I had to summarize your biography because you have such an amazing and a big biography. I mean, you've contributed so much to the cybersecurity industry, and yeah, your experience is so vast, and you're just full of knowledge. And yeah, I really appreciate you making time to be here with us today.
No, you're most welcome. Happy to share some insights with you. And thank you for inviting me to your platform.
100%. Thank you so much. So tell us and take us through the journey in terms of how were you introduced and how did you transition, from working from IT to jumping to cybersecurity? How were you able to transition and do that?
100%. So let me start in terms of my tertiary education. I studied IT at Cape Peninsula University of Technology in Cape Town, South Africa. So I studied communication networks, IT, a little bit of development. And then I landed a job at one of the biggest retailers in Africa, the Foschini Group, better known as TFG. I started as a co-op in desktop support, so really end user computing. And what I realized was that in a team of 400 plus IT professionals, desktop support was only 10 to 15 people fixing computers and supporting end users, right? So very early in my career, I had to ask the question. Obviously, information technology, it's much bigger than what I had thought at that point in time, because at that point in time, my understanding of IT was really you fix computers, you fix mobile devices, and that's what you do. So now I was sitting there thinking, what does the other 390 people do? So I was looking at enterprise architecture, information security at the time, database administration, and I was saying, what fields would interest me, but also from a scarcity perspective, what would work out in the long run? Because if you look at development, for example, there's no shortage of developers. So if I'm about to embark on a journey, it has to be something that 5 to 10 years from now will still have a little bit of scarcity, because scarcity is really what drives the market. And then around 2012, I started my master's journey. So I did a master's in information technology, specializing in information security. So at the time, I was still working in end user computing. I spent a good 3 4 years part-time tackling the master's project. And when I graduated in 2017, fortunately, the same year, I was given an opportunity as a junior information security analyst in the same company, but doing the masters played quite a big role. So for me, I'll summarize to say that very early in the journey, I made a conscious decision to say security is going to be where I'm going to aim for, and I'll come back to it later because when you don't know which way you're going, it becomes very difficult to do the right things. So when I knew in 2011, 2012 that information security is where I'm aiming, I could start my master's degree in cybersecurity at that point in time. Now I only reap the benefits of that master's 10 years later. All right. But that led me into the field. When I got into the field, again, it was a learning because I was an information security analyst, but there's 50 plus different things you can be in cybersecurity. So now again, I had to reflect and to say, in cybersecurity, what skill set would set me apart from the rest? What are the things you need to focus on? And I'll touch on that as well as we go along. But effectively, in end user computing, did an analysis across scarcity, interest, different options, and cybersecurity came out as a clear winner. In fact, it was cybersecurity and enterprise architecture that stood out as these are the two fields where you should aspire to be. And what I said was enterprise architecture, cybersecurity. So it makes sense for me to try and be a security architect because that's really the best of both, right? And I was a security architect, I was a solutions architect, and a principal architect. But we'll come back to that.
Interesting. So I see also you have, as you mentioned, you've got a formal education as well. Tell us about that. How important is formal education? Because I know most of the time we always want to take shortcuts. I'm like, if I can get this course very quickly and just get things done, I'll be able to get a job and secure a job or internship. But how important is formal education from your perspective
Yeah.
and experience?
Mr. Fingers, I saw a quote recently, and I might not get it spot on, but it said that shortcuts is what you get when you've already walked a mile. So when you've done the work, you get a shortcut, right? So the thing around formal education is it's a tricky thing because a lot of people can't afford it.
Yep.
So my take on it is very simple. If your circumstances allow you to do formal education, go to a university, get a diploma or a degree or anything along those lines, I will always say do it. All right. So if your circumstances allow, meaning you can sustain your day-to-day life and you're able to pay the fees, be it a loan, a study loan, or some kind of sponsorship, I would always say do it. And I'll explain why as well. If your circumstance does not allow, you need to support your family, you are unable to do it, it's not an option, all right? It's not, then my advice would be it's not the end of the world. There are now other things you can do to still demonstrate that you are committed. So you're not disqualified. The thing about the degree is what you learn in university has got very little relevance in the real world. You go there for 4 years, and if I reflect on my own journey, I spent a lot of time at university because I did a diploma, a BTEC, a master's, all those things, right? But very little comes into what I do today, right? But university sends a different message. It says that you've got the ability to start something, keep to deadlines, walk the mile, finish things off. So it speaks to certain qualities. It's less about the things you learn at university. It's more about the fact that you can go there because a lot of people go there and they never finish.
That's true.
So it does speak to other qualities. For me, I always say that to make it in this industry, there's really three things you need to be balancing. And if you don't want to be shortchanged, you need to balance all three. Some people lean heavily on the one or two, but if you don't want to be short, if you want to truly be a good practitioner and you want to make a good living, there's three things. It's qualifications, that's your university formal education, as industry certifications and accreditations, and its experience. Now, you could argue that I've got 20 years experience, I don't need the other stuff. And that might work for you, but you're not going to be naming your price when it comes to salary negotiations. Because people will tell you, but I got another person who can do the job, but he's got a master's degree, he's got certifications. So when you tick all three boxes, you've got the experience, meaning you can do the work, you've got formal education and you've got certifications, it's very difficult for people to say, you know, we can't meet your demands, or you don't meet our requirements. So from that perspective, I think balancing those three is quite key.
Interesting. Oh, yo, that's actually a lot of nuggets that you dropped in there, eh? It makes me think in terms of, you know, this is just an example again. So, what advice would you give to somebody, starting out their career or wants to jump into cybersecurity and they say, hey, um, I want to start in cybersecurity. Where should I start or how should I start? Do you think you should start getting, knowledge in IT first, or should you just jump into cybersecurity? What is your take on that?
Interesting question, and it's something that I've seen both sides of. I've seen people jump into IT, then into security. Uh, in my experience, it always works out better if you've got some level of experience before coming into cybersecurity, then jumping straight into cybersecurity. Now, I say it always works out better, but it's not impossible, because I've seen equally many people jump into cybersecurity that eventually catches up. Now, the challenge is we we've lowered the barrier to entry. So if I reflect back 10 years ago, no one is coming into security without some form of formal qualification, and there was quite a lot of requirements for you to come into the industry. They were not entertaining graduates walking straight into cybersecurity. Company would take on 10, 15 graduates, place them everywhere except in cyber. And that in a way contributed to the shortage we have today, because we didn't take on graduates back in the day, right? Now today, every second company has got some kind of graduate upskilling program that's pushing people into cybersecurity with no prior experience. So you come from school, you come from various different backgrounds, and we can skill you up to be a person in a cybersecurity career. The problem is it's very difficult to protect things you don't understand. So
Mm.
again, I want to emphasize, I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm saying it's not really a fair place to start. You're supposed to be protecting systems and data and endpoints, and you've never worked on a computer. You've never gone start, run backslash IP address to connect to a server, and now you're protecting. So the chances of you looking at an incident, looking at a log file, knowing what you're looking at effectively is zero. All right. Now this is where we differentiate between true cybersecurity practitioners and tool operators. Now, tool operators, they look at a tool, they look at a dashboard, they read, they can understand, and they can do things. And there's a place for them in the market, right? Because we spend a lot of money at tools that can make things simple. Now you've got ChatGPT integrating with tools. So as you respond to the incident, you've got prompts next to you saying, check this, ask user to remove this, do A, do B. And it's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. There's a place for it. It's cost effective and it works, but it should not be confused with true expertise. So my advice to someone wanting to break into this field is very simple, right? Define your why. So why do you want to come into cybersecurity? Now, the why is not I want to earn big money, I want to do this, I want to do that. That's all outcomes of why you're there, right? You've got some kind of personality that loves to solve problems. You've got a desire to always learn. That's what's going to excite you. So if you say, I'm curious, I want to meet new people, I also want to learn new things, I want to challenge things, that's a good why. So now you're in the space, right? When you're in, understand the different options available. Do I want to be a SOC analyst? Do I want to be a pen tester? Do I want to be an auditor? Do I want to be digital forensics? Do I want to be a security awareness administrator? There's something for everyone, all right? And everyone can do anything, but everyone can't do everything. So you need to understand, given my inclination, what would work best for me, because you also want to enjoy what you do. Now, that's very important to know early, because if you're coming in saying, I want to be a hacker because it sounds cool, but you're not technically inclined, now you're going to start studying CEH and all kinds of certifications to be a hacker. But there's a saying that says, you can never be you can't be great from mediocre. You can't be mediocre and become great. You need to be good at something naturally, and then you've got a shot at being great at something. So when you find the thing that excites you, it becomes easy to delve into it. So now your studies can align to it. When you go to conferences, events, everything aligns to what it is you want to do. So, for example, you get conferences with themes. So you get a GRC conference and you get, for example, hacker conferences. So if you know where it is you want to go, you start reading the books along your interest field, you start doing certifications, and you start moving in a circle of people that can support your journey. Not knowing where you want to be, the risk there is you start dabbling in everything. And then sooner or later, you'll find yourself in circles where the people's got no relevance or they're unable to assist you because you all lost. So you kind of do need to establish where it is you're wanting to go towards. From there, practically join some communities. So, chapters. I've got the IAC2 Cape Town chapter I started, but there's different chapters and forums. And it's important to join those things because number one, you learn, and number two, you connect with people. And then once you start getting involved, everything kind of falls in place from there.
Yeah, I understand why you see why I favor you as a great teacher, that you are an absolutely phenomenal teacher.
No,
Be-
thank you, Mr. Fingers.
because you're
The,
able
the
to break down hard concepts and make them simple to understand, you know.
Thank you, Mr. Fingers. On this topic, and I will share this with you if you want to share to your audience.
Yeah,
I've written a article and a guide on how to break into cyber. I broke it down into 8 steps, and it is practical. It is simple. It's things like join cyber communities in your area, and I will give you 5 examples of what it might be. Because the ISC2 chapter is in every city around the world. So there's those things where it's free, it's no effort, but if you don't know, you'll never know.
100%, 100%. So I will post it obviously also here. The link will be right there on the description so people can also go view it and read more about it as well. You spoke about something very, very powerful in that when you were starting out, because it's relating to this, when you were starting out, you had to sit down and go back and be like, okay, let me go back to the drawing board. What is that I want to do in cybersecurity because it's fast? And you looked at two things, as you mentioned. One of them was, you want to jump into building, and another one into architecture, which is same, that skill of building and understanding how architecture works. But what made you come to that conclusion, all in all?
Yeah, so for me, Mr. Fingers, I watched this video. You may have seen it. It's where the guy speaks about many people say where I want to be in 5 to 10 years, right?
Mhm.
But he says just plan for the next 12 months. So it's about micro ambitious. So be micro ambitious, right? Don't worry about 5 years. If you've got a good plan for the next 12 months, every 12 months, you're going to be in a great place in 5 years.
Yeah,
So I've got guiding principles, right? My guiding principles is never in the same role for more than 2 years. All right. I'm in a role and I say I cannot be in the same role for more than 2 years because it will take me about 2 years to master the role. Then I need to find myself in a space where I'm unqualified so I can learn something new. This thing about being skilled in one domain only or being a jack of all trades is pros and cons to both. Now,
mm,
in my previous role at my previous organization, I was what you call a jack of all trades. So you need a new tool. I'm the guy installing the tool, but I'm also the guy using the tool tomorrow. All right. Now, when you're installing tools, you designing systems and architectures. Then when you're using tools, you're not just consuming it as a business user would use Outlook or whatever, but you're not technically involved in it. So I was fortunate to be involved in both implementation and consumption of tools, right? And I've seen my fair share of badly implemented solutions. So I think that's one thing that drives you to want to build things better. It's when you're using tools that hasn't been architected properly. Now I've also built the first SOC for the Foschini group. So I built the first security operations center, and I was responding to incidents. Now because I've been in so many different roles, I've seen this problem from all angles,
mm.
right? The architecture space was, I would say, by far the best space for me because there you could build something from the ground up properly. Now, the big problem that's contributing to this, Mr. Fingers, is a lot of people lack the skill set to implement solutions properly. So you get a lot of people will implement something and they will install it and send some logs to it and they will walk away, right? But there's always 3 elements to it, right? There's technology, then there's people and process. More times than not, people are not trained how to use a tool properly. The processes are not defined. Every technology needs supporting processes. When the tool sends an alert, who is supposed to do what? Have they been trained to do it? Has the process been documented? I'm telling you, most of the big corporates, the answer is no to those questions. People implement something with inflated expectations, and then those two elements are missing. So what I enjoyed most of it was implementing a solution, then building the support model, the operating model, the RACI. You need to do those things, otherwise it just won't work. So in short, natural progression for me, having seen this cybersecurity challenge from all angles. I wanted, I left the security operations center role to become an architect. So I was in management, and I stepped back into the technical space because I felt like I needed that for a few years to really sharpen the skills.
Yeah, and I feel once you understand how everything works, especially if you're going to be jumping to management, it makes your job much more easier to be sympathetic with others in terms of having grace and understanding. If something goes wrong, you're able to understand, oh, it's because of this and that and this. And then instead of just like, okay, I don't understand what are you saying. But very interesting. But as the founder of Cyber Stories, I truly believe that you aim to raise public awareness and cyber awareness. Now, can you tell us a bit more about the project and why you believe storytelling is such a powerful tool in the cybersecurity community?
I'll do that. So cyber stories, as outside of my job, that's my biggest passion, right? Because I believe that when you tell a story, it's so much more memorable. It's easy to remember, it's easy to retell, and it makes an impact. If I say to you, statistics say ABC, it's outright boring. No, and I think I can best articulate this maybe with a story. So I went to a conference last year. This is a true story, right? I
Hmm.
went to a conference last year, April, Ecom Africa in Cape Town. 1,000 delegates, the room was full. I sat right at the back. And the first topic is artificial intelligence. The second topic is fintech and innovative payment solutions. And the third topic is cybersecurity. As the third speaker walks onto the floor, half the room gets up and they leave. They go next door to the expo, grab a coffee, and do all things they should do because cybersecurity is an IT thing, it's a business thing. All right. Now that was a business conference. It was e-commerce Africa, so it wasn't for IT people, and they had that view as well because they all left the room. Now I reflected on it, and I knew immediately why they left. All right, they left because IT professionals are not connecting the dots between what we do and what the business do. We read NIST and we say we need the 18-character password because the lines to NIST best practices. But when you reflect on the user experience, what does the 18 character password mean for your online shopper using an old mobile device? What does it mean for the user experience? So the takeaway there is as long as cybersecurity leaders are not connecting the dots between security projects and initiatives to the business, half the room will always leave. All right. Now, that's an example of a story that I could use easily to communicate why it's important that we always speak about business objectives. It's never about the MITRE ATT&CK framework. It's never about lateral movement. It's about what do I need to do to support my business. You walk into a boardroom, you don't speak about technical things. You speak about we need to ensure that our platform is up. We need to make sure that we're preventing payment fraud. We need to make sure we're preventing business email compromise. It always has to be about business concerns. And then when you go back and you sit with your technical team, you talk about technical things. So that's one example of a story I use to drive that specific message, right? And I've got 50, 60 different stories. And what it does is really simple. I get to land a very important message in a way that's easily relatable. And I speak about it. I post online, so I'm quite big on awareness content. You will see just after this, I'm dropping something called cybersecurity for kids, aged 6 to 8 years old, because I believe that if you can't explain it to 6, 7 year old, then you are fundamentally not understanding it yourself.
True.
And I think one of the big pieces of advice I will share with you here is I met a person called Philemon Zongo 2 years ago. Now you might know him. He's based in the UK, global CISO. And he said to me that the most important skill you need to learn early in your career is how to communicate complex things in an easy to understand way. You need to be able to take complex stuff, explain it to the person on the street, and they must be able to understand it. He says that's the skill that's going to set you apart from the rest. And upon getting that advice from him, I started writing. So now what I do is I write for the Isaka journal and I take concepts and I break it down into simplest way to understand, and it helps me to communicate better because it is not that the business don't see the importance of cybersecurity or the business doesn't want to invest. It's that we're not explaining the value properly. Many times it comes down to poor communication from the cybersecurity cyber leader side. We want to say it's a mandate, it's GDPR, it's Popeye, and we expect the business must be happy with that. You have to speak value. So cybersecurity is about risk reduction, but now it also needs to be about value add to the organization. So you need to say, if you're an e-commerce business, you need to know that if the sign up process is too complex for users, the customer will close the browser and go to the next site. So when you have that information, you start architecting for a seamless user experience. And now you're contributing to the bottom line.
Nice. I like that. And you spoke about something which I also truly believe in terms of skill set, which is more on the, soft skills side of things as well. Is that this is where also on our industry where a lot of engineers or a lot of people lack in terms of soft skills, in terms of communication, writing skills, and all that. How important do you think that is?
Extremely. Because look, there will always be exceptions. So you will always get the pure engineer who sits in a corner and he just does his thing really well and we'll make it work around him. You get those guys. They never have to learn communication skills because they are that good. All right. But that's the exception and not the rule. You need to be able to communicate with people outside of cybersecurity. Whether you're an analyst, you need to be able to communicate to your manager. Whether you're a senior person, engage with the business. And the business will ask questions. They will ask you, how serious is this? But nothing has ever happened in the last 5 years. Why should I worry now? Then you need to be able to articulate to people what risk is, what can materialize, why we do what we do. The answer is not because the standard says so, because NIST says so. It's never that, right? Soft skills extremely important. Cyber incidents get a lot of focus. There's always report writing involved. You want to make sure that it's easy to understand. So always make sure that you are aware who the audience is. If your audience is not cybersecurity people, you need to write for the audience. There are places where you write technical detail in a forensics report for other forensics experts to look at. And there are times where you write for business people and you need to always adapt to it. But being able to present something, to speak something, because all about influence. You want to solve a business problem, put a business case together, present the business case. So presentation skills, writing, communication in all forms, extremely key. It's one of those things where if you don't have it, you'll probably survive the industry, but you're not going to be differentiating yourself and you're certainly not going to be accelerating up the career ladder.
Yeah.
So definitely it's a game. In fact, I know of people who's so good with the softer side, they're actually lacking some of the depth on the technical side, but they're still accelerating. So it really is quite important to focus on those skills. It's easy to think cybersecurity all technical, and now all of our studies and things go on to the technical stuff. But you have to step back and say, let me do a course on presentation skills. Let me go do some courses on report writing. Last year, I went to go and do some courses on report writing because you think you know how to write until you're sitting for 3 days with an expert teaching you how to write.
That's so true. It's so true. Finding balance in between the both the technical and also non-technical as well, soft skills and hard skills. And I really like that as well. So tell me, in terms of, because obviously you're managing a team, you've managed a team before, you've worked in the team as well. Um, how important is rest? Because cybersecurity sometimes it can be very stressful most of the times, and we can have a lot of burnouts coming in. But for you, how do you find balance in terms of trying to balance everything from being a content creator, from being working in management, from being a speaker, from being a teacher, and all these things, like, and having a family at the same time? How do you find balance in all between all these things?
Yeah, Mr. Fingers, I haven't mastered finding balance. I'll tell you what I do that works for me. All right. Um, the idea of work-life balance where everything just runs perfectly doesn't exist. I've yet to see that. The scale always tips in favor of one thing or another, right? So there are times in your career where the scale tips in your career and you put in a lot of work and a lot of hours to make things happen there, all right? And then you need to purposefully step back and say, I've got a family, I need to just zone out, go away, do some things, right? For me, I haven't gotten to this perfect harmonious balance where on a day-to-day it's just perfect. I'm in this phase now where I put in a lot here and the scale will tip and then I have to step back and I do something here. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you will see that there are times where I'm very active and then for 2 weeks I'm just quiet. And then that's me stepping back and balancing the scales on other sides. So it is important to have your order of priorities right. So in my case, my family is my highest priority, followed by my job at Engine, right? So everything else is secondary to that. So even you inviting me here, this is great, right? And it's quite important. But if something at work came up, I would have had to cancel with you. If something with my family came up, I would have had to cancel. So it's very important to have your order of priorities because that will guide you. Everything else
Yeah.
just slots in. Um, but if you are just starting out, if you're starting out, and I give this advice a lot to young people, you're starting out, you don't have a family, you've got all the time in the world, use the time. Because as life goes on, you get a family, you get a job, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do the things you could have done in your early 20s when you had all the time.
That is so true. I truly believe that as well. Because I've spoken to a lot of SOC analysts. I've even interviewed them as well. Most of them who are now managers, they've said the same thing. Is that before having a family, while you're still starting out in your career, you're still fresh. You know, enjoy it. But once you start having a family, you have to try to find balance in between, because if you
Yes,
don't, something will die. You know, you can't, as you said, you can't find balance in between. So you have to try to be like, okay, maybe this one will survive, maybe this one won't survive, but
exactly.
100%. So in terms of, let's say for example, you were to interview or a candidate for a SOC analyst role, what is that you would look for into that particular candidate in terms of skill, certifications, and also, do you, yeah, if the candidate comes from a background where obviously they've never worked in cybersecurity but they've upskilled themselves, what is that you would look for in that particular candidate?
You know, so my my view on certifications. Let me touch on qualifications and certifications first,
Yeah.
right? So, to a large extent, you are guided by the organization you work for. So, any hiring manager, you might say, I don't need people to have a degree, but your company might have a policy that says, for this level of job, we want degrees, right? So that will always guide you. But you get exceptions to the rule, and I've seen this even in my own place. You get exceptions where you meet a really great person and they're missing a critical thing, and you can justify, you can always bend the rules for the right person. What I look for is a demonstrated history of effort. Okay. Now, I have done almost all the certification that's available out there, and most of it I paid for myself, and some I was fortunate where the organizations paid for me. But I understand the economic climate in which we live. A lot of people simply can't afford to do the certifications. That doesn't mean they're not committed, but there's equally many free things they can do. If I ask you, what have you done in the last 12 months to improve yourself? I'm expecting a list of free certifications, certificate of completions, and all those things to be presented to me. I don't expect I'm unable to do a CISP, so I've done nothing. All right. So it's about a demonstrated history. You need to be a saying that says it's better to be resourceful than to have resources. I met a
Yeah.
guy and he wanted to go to a conference badly and he couldn't afford it. And then he contacted the conference and he said, "Can I volunteer?" And I said, "Yes." And he was in for free. And that's being resourceful. That's where I met him, right? And those are the things we look for. So what are you doing? I almost want to say that if you are less fortunate, you might just be in a better position to demonstrate how creative you can be. All right. So certifications, if you, let's say, you are able to do what you do, things that we expect as a base minimum: certified in cyber, IC2, CompTIA Security Plus, the usual basic ones that's out there. All right. But I want to say it's less about which certification you've done and more about the fact that you've done some things. Even if you didn't write the exam, just demonstrate that you've got that ability to always keep busy, always want to learn. For me, that's important, right? Then obviously we look at, from a project volunteer perspective, what have you done? Because that speaks to initiative. Am I giving a little back? Am I mentoring? Am I getting involved? And then it really then depends on how you position yourself. If you come and you say, I've got no experience, then we know what we're working with. If you come and you say, I've done this for 2 years and I know my story, then I might present you with some scenarios and then I expect that you know your story. So it does come with the expectation that you set and manage as well. All
Mm.
right. But it's becoming more and more of a gray area. And yeah, it's more and more of a gray area. And I think it's both a good and a bad thing.
And 100%. So, what do you mind elaborating in terms of it's a bit of a gray area? Do you mean, in my sense, maybe I don't know if I'm understanding you perfectly. Probably you can elaborate, but in my sense, this is what I've seen. I'll speak from what I've seen as well, from experience of seeing even people inboxing me and saying this, and which is I always advise not to. When people are like, I want to get this certificate, this certificate, this certificate, and I always ask them why. Why do you want to get it? What's the reason behind it? And who told you should get that? Do you think that's going to get you a job? Because sometimes most people think getting a certification will get them a job. And I always tell them, it's not really that. You will be tested. You will be tested. But I
Yes.
think you can elaborate a bit further on that.
Yeah, I give the same advice, Mr. Finger. So a certification is it's a ticket to the game, all right? But you still need to be able to play. Now, I can speak from a place of experience because I've done a lot of certifications, and people ask me why do you do it? Why so many? Why are you still like right now? I'm studying for 2 certifications that I'll do in the next 30 days, right? And you'd say, but you've got 30 already. Why you want to do more? And I've got my reasons, but certification, when you embark, this is my take on it. If you want to learn, there is enough resources where you can learn. Watch a YouTube video, read a book, and learn. When you do a certification, you're doing it for other reasons. You are doing it to demonstrate to either to yourself or to somebody that you know your story. You're doing it for marketability. You're not doing a certification for the fun of it. Because if you reflect on it, any certification has a body of knowledge. If you only want to learn, read the book, watch the videos, and never write the exam. You write the exam to prove a point. All right. So my take is, and again, it comes back to I can start and I can finish something because watching videos without an exam also doesn't mean much. But when you're going in, you're really learning new things. There's a level of validation that this guy he knows the basics. So I would say if you can, I would encourage you to do it. Um, at the right time, maybe don't overdo it. So don't start off by doing 4, 5, and then having no experience. Try to balance the certs with the experience. So when you're just starting out, maybe Security Plus is a good idea, and then as you progress, you do more. But the last thing you want to do is do a CISP and a SISM and everything right at the beginning of your career. And then you're sitting with all those papers and no experience to back it up. It works well when it goes with your experience. And that's
Mm.
why you will see some of the certifications says you must have 5 years experience before you can get it. All right. So it's also just to create that quality of it where you're not sitting with somebody who's coming from university, no experience, and he's now a certified information systems auditor, for example.
I really love your answer. I was reading something really powerful this past week, and I was talking to my friend, I think also last week, and we spoke about something very powerful, and he mentioned something, and to me it made me do a bit of a research as well. And again, this is, we're not attacking anybody, it's just us having a conversation. What do you think and your thoughts on boot camps, cybersecurity boot camps, which are 6 months, 1 year, and they promise people that they will get a job after that?
Yeah, I think the moment you get a promise, you should be worried. All right. Even bootcamp saying we've got 100% pass rate of this test. They can't, unless they're gonna hire you, they cannot promise you a job, right? The only thing I can promise you is what I'm gonna teach you. So my thoughts on boot camps, I've never been on one. I won't go to any because I don't believe that extent of knowledge can be crammed into a week. I don't think it's possible or feasible. And typically, at least from what I've seen, boot camps is always comes at extremely high price with some very great promises that's got an ethical, doesn't sit well with me from that perspective.
Yeah.
It's always I often, I want to say, I often look at training that's out there, and boot camps always come with guaranteed pass rate or money back or guaranteed placement, and I know it doesn't work like that. I've seen authentic programs, they train kids, they do something proper, and even they struggle to place people. So I fail to see how anybody can promise 100% guarantee. I think the message that must go out is that it is not that expensive to land an entry level career. There's enough free resources, there's enough guidance out there for people to demonstrate effort and not break the bank. There's enough. Even what you're doing now with this podcast, you're sharing insights at virtually no cost to people. And there's enough of these initiatives going out where people don't have to buy into a boot camp, take out a loan just to break into cyber. It has to be genuine, authentic effort so that when you break in, you can actually deliver on the things you say you can do.
100%. Your answer is so, it's so good. I didn't expect such a beautiful answer. Thank you. It's a leadership answer. So I appreciate that answer. And you touched on something, because I was about to ask you a last question, but you touched on something, and this for me we have to bring it up. In our industry, it's so hard for most people trying to break into cybersecurity once they have everything. You know, what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to break into cybersecurity right now, and they saying, I've been trying, I'm even trying to transition from being a help desk to cybersecurity. I've tried everything, I have everything, I've done everything from try hack me to, let's defend. I'm just tired now. What advice would you give to somebody like that?
I actually know somebody like that. Oh, that guy's been going at it for 2+ years. I'm talking about committed, all right? Works in IT, just not getting a break. And 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 I'll tell you the advice I've given him, but you need to keep going. That's the first thing, right? You need to keep, the break will come. And this is something that I don't quite understand. We've got a shortage of practitioners, but good people are struggling to break in. It's not adding up. But I'm seeing it firsthand, right? When you've done everything you can do, but it's not happening, the only thing left is networking. So people, they hire who they know. All right. It's extremely, I can tell you, having managed the wrong people, it is the most taxing thing you can do. All right. So given a choice between a complete stranger and somebody that I have worked with before and I know how they work, I will always go with what I know. All right. Because the gamble is too big. I've taken that gamble many times, and equally as many times I've been disappointed in somebody who comes in and they're not performing. And that, when somebody joins a team, they need to add value. The wrong person joins, they subtracting value from an already stretched team. So networking is quite important. Consistently showing up, joining chapters, in-person meetups, forums, because now you get to meet people. Now remember, people hire people. So when people get to know you, now when something comes up, now you come top of mind. Now it's not just a CV with a random stranger. Now it's a person that I've known for the last 2 years. So networking is extremely important. when it comes to breaking into the field, accelerating your career. And networking, doesn't have to mean the top tier conferences. I'm saying there's a lot of community meetups. Our chapter, we've got 2 online webinars a month, completely free, and it's heavily engaging. People, we always have to stop it over time because people are sharing knowledge. We get industry experts in. So when all else fails, not when all else fails, it has to be part of your journey. Your online presence is important. Have a good LinkedIn. Be active on LinkedIn. If you're not comfortable posting, at least start liking or commenting on things, but have some kind of presence, and where possible, show up as well. And that's going to be a potential game changer. Again, I can't guarantee that it's going to work. I'm working with somebody now. He has not yet gotten his break, but he's still going at it quite strongly.
Thank you for the answer. I think somebody at home or people who are listening as well, I think they also really needed to hear that, because, yeah, that's also very helpful in terms of networking as well. It's very important to network. It's very important to also make yourself visible on LinkedIn. So people should know you as well. So what I always say to even my followers, even when on TikTok, when I speak, is that don't copy what somebody else is doing in terms of you posting your work. Most of us, we want to post success. I'm like, post even about your failures. Did you how did you fail from this and now you succeeded on this? Because we want to know how did you fail and come to a conclusion of succeeding into that. Because now what you're doing, you're showing the leader that you are a problem solver, and
Yes.
you came across that, you're like, okay, this gave me problems within the space of a week, but now I was able to come up with a solution for this particular problem. And that's something quite amazing. So I think final question which I actually have for you is what is one piece of advice you would give to our listeners who are eager to make their mark in the cybersecurity industry?
Yeah. So the path to cybersecurity is riddled with shortcuts. All right. So exam brain dumps, boot camps, and these things look appealing because it's a quick way to get there. But there's no shortcuts to success. You need to put in the work, and your time will come. And I can share my own story, right? Um, I always say that there's 3 phases of your career, and if you think of input and output, right? In the beginning phase, you put in a lot and you get out almost nothing, all right? Because you're in your phase of paying your school fees and learning. And then 3, 4 years in, you get to the phase where you put in and you get out what you put in. And then you get to the peak phase where you put in just enough and you get out a lot. But you can never start there. You have to first pay your dues, and paying your dues, it's 10 plus years. You need to do the work, do the studies. Regardless of where you come from, you might not be able to afford university today, but at some point you're going to work for a big corporate perhaps. They've got assistants. Take every opportunity that comes your way, capitalize on it, so that when you leave an organization on opportunity, you always leave stronger than what you came there for. All right. But the work has to go in. The time will come where you make your million overnight. But it goes back to that overnight millionaires is 15 years in the making. So be mindful that these shortcuts, in fact, it can do more harm than good, because you go down this path, you find yourself now being successful, and then you're unqualified, you can't do the work. I can't imagine what it will do to your mental health. So put in the work, stay true to the cause, and inevitably life will work out.
Appreciate that. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. That's actually some great advice. Really appreciate you making time also and making it through. Thank you so much.
No, Mr. Fingers, thank you for having me. I had a blast speaking to you, and thank you for allowing me to share some insights.